All right. Wait for this last to come in. Hey everyone, my name is Daniel. I'm here to talk to you about server-side rendering. It's a thing that I absolutely love, and we're going to be talking about state and routing because I've talked about server-side rendering a couple of times before this, and the number one thing that gets asked to me at the end in like a question period is the same thing. They're like, well, how do you do state and how do you do routing? Like, somehow some people forgot about doing this. So, we're going to look at this. So we're going to use a couple of tools to do this. We're going to use Express for routing, and we're going to use cookie session for handling our state. Really. So yeah, you heard me right, we're going to use Express for more than just something like this. Right? Most of you remember your Express server as you put your app in here, and then you white label the whole thing, and you basically you got your app. It's nothing more than a file serve, right? Well, I'm here to tell you that Express does a hell of a lot more than this, and it does it really, really, really well. Like, out of all of the frameworks that I've used, Express pretty much has the best router. And I'm a Go fanatic, and Go's HTTP is pretty good, but Express is definitely better. So,
are you including other JavaScript frameworks?
Yes, I'm including other JavaScript frameworks.
No, I meant like server-side, like
server-side, yeah,
Koa and
like Koa and even Ember Fastboot, because you could consider that a server-side rendering app, I guess. And I think there's a server-side React. I might be wrong on this. Preact.
Next.js.
That's it. Yeah. So, but before we're going to do that, who here has done server-side rendering before? Who's new to the topic? Who's new?
You.
You? Okay, great. You too. Who here has done it before? Majority of people. Great. There's nothing new about server-side rendering. This is how we used to do it, right? Single-page applications is the new thing. Server-side rendering is the old thing, but it's actually a shit ton easier, right? So why is server-side rendering? It's like server-side rendering got to be like some kind of a lost language within JavaScript developers, kind of like, I don't know, like one of these old languages that we write on the walls, paint the things. We just completely forgot it, right? You know, people literally stopped doing server-side rendering. So people went and did the single-page applications, and you know, companies, I'm not naming names, Facebook, but not naming names, they put a lot of advertising dollars in advertising their single-page application technologies, React. And they're not necessarily the greatest implementations, and they're kind of like throwing, I don't know if you've ever seen like that American barbecue kind of thing where someone's cooking some meat and someone's like, oh, we need to have bigger flames, and they just put more gasoline on the fire. That's React. So anyhow, there's a lot of problems with server-side rendering, single-page applications. But why server-side rendering? We get a clear separation of concern, right? We can really use model view controller really, really, really easily. You can break it up, you can do all kinds of stuff like that. So the other reason is large applications is a breeze. Like I remember in Angular 1.0 days, everyone, including the Angular devs, were like, please, telling the community, please don't use this for large-scale applications. And they were also saying, hey, we also use this for YouTube, right? But please don't do it for large-scale applications. So server-side rendered apps were really, really easy for large-scale applications because you could pull everything apart and have separate files for even the minutest, stupidest little thing. You could do that, right? It was much faster for both the client and the server, right? So a big problem with single-page applications is you go to someone's website, you go to their about page, you Google them, like you Google their name, you go, oh, I want to know this about something, and you go to their page, and Google takes you to their about page. You don't just download their about page, you download every page, every single one, the whole thing, right? That's not good for the client, because what if the client just needed to know the address? Now they've got your whole website. So great, they're not going to have a secondary or third or fourth or any kind of tertiary click after that. So what was the point of having a single page application? The other reason is security. I work in security, and I can honestly tell you one of the biggest problems that I always have is people go, how do I get this, say, let's say OAuth2 integration, or how do I transfer this nonce between two things secretly? And I say, well, you're a single page application. You can't do that because your passwords and your security codes are all in the clear. You have to do extra legwork just to make it more secure. The default level of security that you would have had for free had you done the server-side rendering. And the other one is a larger ecosystem. I mean, it's been around for like 20 something plus years. That's bound to have a larger ecosystem. And you get to choose your tooling. You don't have to be using JavaScript. You could use something else. Go, don't use Ruby, anything else. So I kind of came up with what I call the express-vue way of doing things. Specifically, and this is going to specifically pertain to using Vue and Express together. So the way we did it, and I prefer the model view controller way of doing things, and it's really simple. Your Express controller, your route controller in Express, will hold your data, your models, your meta tags, your config, and your state, so that user state. Then what you do is the user does a request, and you send that to the Vue.js view, and they've got that on the client side. So, okay, that's their default state. So now they've got it, and that's their default state. So if you Google scraped this page, if you curled this page, you did whatever, it would come out as a full page. You wouldn't have to use something like prerender.io. All of that kind of really nice stuff is just already handled out of the box for you. You've got your client-side application, they've got their default state, and you're ready to go. It's faster this way as well for the client because they're only getting that page. They're not getting your whole website. And when the browser goes, okay, I need to get DOM ready and parse all the JS and then parse the HTML and parse the CSS. It doesn't have to do it. It just literally goes, oh, I've got a web page, here you go. And that's it, it's ready. The beauty part about Vue.js, and this is the reason why I really like Vue.js, is because it's got this client-side hydration. And so what you can do is you can actually server-side render Vue.js and have it come over to the client, have it hydrate itself, and it's super neat. So now you've got that, what do? Well, you need to update your Vue.js view. So the client pushes a button. So the end user says, types in a web form, for instance. And you send that web form over via an API request to your Express controller, which is also your API, or could be also your API. Or you could have an API behind a firewall, whatever. It then changes the data and the state and sends that back to the client, right? And then the client updates client side. There's no route change, there's nothing, because Vue.js is really, really easy to work with in this sort of way. It was like before when we did this, we had server-rendered stuff, and then we had, we had, what was it? What was that JavaScript library? jQuery. We had jQuery. Oh, it was fucking awful. My therapist helped me forget jQuery. So yeah, that's it. It's super easy. All you have to do, and this is, you just keep doing this around and around and around. You get to design this interaction however you want to do, and basically what happens is you have a fully server-side rendered thing. This may look familiar, right? This would be your API, and this would just be your Vue.js view. But you can have both of those things in a single place. Okay, so why do it this way? Well, why do state and routing on Express? Well, if you're going to be server rendering a page, it's way easier to do all of your, at least your routing on Express and your state on the server. So I had a chance a couple of months ago to chat with the Nux brothers, and one of the things that they asked me was that they were like, how do you handle these types of routes on, in these sort of things? And I'm like, oh, you mean like route params? Like, how do you do that? Oh, that's easy. You put a colon and then you put the keyword. It's Express handles that for you. I don't give a shit. That's not my problem. So, why? It's really, really nice to be able to break up your logic in your app into smaller parts. Having separate files for each route controller, you could give each other's route states, you can handle everything really, really small. And the best part is you don't have to transfer that to the client. It's kept on the server. It's not, you only transfer what you want to transfer to the client. So you get to break everything up into smaller pieces, both for you and also for the client, right? you get to treat Vue files and route controllers completely separately. You get to use Express for more than just a catch-all router. I mean, having a catch-all router is really great, but then you can't have an API on your actual server. You would have to have a separate server to have your API, for instance. So, the single-page application tools, I mean, yeah, they're great, but you know, Vue-router and Vuex were created to solve problems that were already solved before. You know, server rendering obviously isn't new, and you know, the single-page application has its pros and cons. I mean, it's definitely a pro if you're going to be doing a very tiny, minuscule sort of thing, but the minute that it starts becoming an enormous sort of thing, or the minute it starts to require a lot of security, or the minute that it needs to be scraped by Google and you don't want to pay like $10,000 a month to pre-render.io for the sake of having SEO. Single page applications, that's where they lose out. So that's where a single server rendered application really wins out. All right, so what we're going to be looking at today. So we're going to use Express for routing because it really is amazing, like honestly. We're going to use Express session for state, cookie session is what they call it, without a database. And I'll explain that. Basically, how this works is instead of having a database to save your session, your client saves the session in the cookies. It might sound like you have to put one of those EU cookie warnings there, but you don't, because that's only for tracking third-party things. The other one is Mongoose or Dynamoose for state if you have a database. I mean, you don't always have to have a database, but I would recommend either Mongoose or Dynamoose. I mean, if you've got an Amazon thing, and pretty much everyone here is Amazon, you probably have to use Dynamoose, but Mongoose is nice. All right, so Express routing 101. It's really easy. I mean, this is a get, that's a post, right? Both of these happen on the same route. You can cross-pollinate them. You can also do like app.all and then a route, so it'll handle all the whole crud, like, you know, get, delete, update, all of it. And then, you know, you send back the response, right? It's really simple. That's a route controller, and they handle back. So it can get a little bit more fun where you can use params here. So the param is dedicated there by the colon. And it comes out, like rec params comes out as an object, which is really neat. Routing 301, I have never ever used these kinds of things, but they exist. I mean, look, it's it's a regex. I love regexes. Trust me, I love regexes. Anyhow, state. Okay, so here we go. Here we started instantiated Express, and we basically use this library that Express maintains called session, cookie session in this case, and then you give it a secret and a bunch of basic security stuff. Please don't put something like this into production. Please put a lot more security behind this. Basically what this is going to do is this is going to do the most basic level of encryption on your cookie store. So the cookies that are transferred to your client and back to you, they're encrypted. You can add extra keys to go through more levels of encryption, and you can enable or disable things based on if you're in production or stage or development or whatever. But yeah, don't put that in production. And furthermore, this is how it works. Once you're in your Express router, right, in your route controller, you can set something into session like that, and you can get something out of session like that. They're objects. It saves as soon as you respond to the user. It gets saved back into session to the user. It's just ridiculously simple. You don't need any extra stuff. You don't need to sit there and go, because I know a lot of common complaints about, say, like Vuex and other things like it is that it's insanely complicated. This isn't. It's ridiculously easy. So we're gonna see this in action, and I'm gonna show you as soon as I find it. This one. Right, I'm gonna show you basic thing. No, damn it. Oh, I need to do this. Sorry, everyone. Is it this way? Yeah. Cool. Go back. There we go. Can everyone read that? Need me beer?
No.
It's cool. No, oh no, it's not cool. Okay, this is Norwegian keyboard, I'm an English person. I think this is the bigger button. This is the bigger button, great. Are we good? Right, okay. So, let's take a look at let's take a look at a route controller. We're going to look at the to-do MVC. Everyone here seen the to-do MVC? Should I load it up over here so that you can see this is what the to-do MVC looks like? The to-do MVC, do stuff. Okay, so here's the route controller. So when you get this page, you refresh it. It's going to run through here on the basic to-do routes. It's got a piece of Node Express middleware here, which is generate to-dos, and I'll show you that in a second. And then it goes through and it puts the data in the right size. It says, go get this CSS file. It says, go add this, Axios JavaScript to the client. Then it has a couple of filters, and then it has a funky share thing that I've added in. I'll show you that later. And then it says, put all that data into this Vue file with these options, which is going to be like head and stuff like that. So that generate to-dos. Yeah, great. So what happens is it comes in here, and this is a piece of Express middleware. So what it says is if there is no to-dos in the session, build the to-dos in an object that it'll understand, right? And then when you finish, done, next. So every time the person comes in this, it goes through this piece of middleware. That's what middleware is for. So then, if we go back to the example, and we refresh this page, this is the basic to-do. So if I go and add this and I refresh the page, we still have state, right? Go off, we still have state. If we curl it, right? We have it in its basic state. Oh, yeah, that was an error page. There we go. We have it in its default state. Obviously, there's a lot more than that. So yeah, there we go. All the checkboxes there. You can see eat food there, and you got eat food there. So Google is going to scrape this, no problem. So SEO is handled. So let's take a look at that cookie. So yeah, we've got two cookies here. We've got a signature and we have a session. And you can see that the value is it's encrypted.
Increase the box size?
Maybe? Oh my god, I can. Thank you, Firefox. Don't use Firefox. Yeah, so you can see, is it okay? Yeah, you can see that it's a basic. I think it's SHA-1, maybe SHA-256. Okay. So anyhow, so what I basically did is I went and grabbed the to-do MVC app off the Vue.js website, and then I put it in here, and I only had to change it very, very slightly to be server-side rendered, well, to fit my thing. And basically what I had to do was change a couple of small things. So for instance, I've got a watch task here, so every time the to-dos is handled, what I do is I do a post to my own server with the to-dos object, right? And I'll show you how that looks. And so because I've got the get here, I've got the get here, I've got the update here. So here's the one part, the one route controller that just handles the updating of the state on the server, right? Because all you have to do is just send it back to the server, and it comes back again, and now it's in rec session. It's not leaving anywhere. And I return it with true. Because obviously the client can't, the client can't update this session, this cookie session, because it's encrypted, and that's by design. So you've got that watch, and then you can do a bunch of things. So let's have a look. Let's have a look at this demo. So I can add, and then hello. I can add stuff. I can do this. I can do these things here, and I can see the ones that are only completed. I can see the ones that are only active. I can see all. I go there and I refresh the page. No matter what I do, I'm going to keep the state. And this is all server rendered. This is something that was actually kind of like, it's, you would use a lot of lines on Vuex just to handle sort of this sort of thing. And here what we've got is, you can see up here we have a route param with filter, and then it's active. And then back up here you'll see, oops, in the controller you'll see how I've handled that using one rec query filter, and then I've gone and taken a filter and I've run it through a switch case to handle stuff like, which is like filtering the to-dos based on if they're completed or not. So that's yeah, so that's how we handle that. But here I'm going to show you something that you can't do on a single page application. I'm going to show you how we can share something. So as soon as I click that share button, it changes the parameter. It gives me this SHA-256. So we're going to go and open up another browser, and we're going to paste it there. Please, fuck you, Safari. Right, and it'll match. So if I, let's say I added this, a couple more, I click that share button again, and we have them on the other one. You can see the difference between Firefox and Safari, by the way. One is nice with CSS, and one's not naming names, most of you suck. Anyhow, you can't do this with a single page application. I'll show you why. So what we did is I created a utility here called decrypt, and I created another utility called encrypt. So let's take a look at that. What it is, if anyone noticed, it's a JWT, right? So it's got a password here on the server. Now JWTs work really, really fantastic for transferring things between two things with a timeout, all kinds of stuff. They're really, really nice. They're very, very secure. You're going to put a password on it. But you can't put that into your single page application because, you know, where do you store the secret key? This little thing down here, which is so what it does is the encrypts, and if you have a look at the decrypt, and you see that, yeah, the decrypt decrypts it, turns it back into a model, as you can see here, and then it passes that model back as an array back to the thing there. So rect query share there, it takes that query parameter, runs it through the decrypt, and then it decrypts. Yeah, that's basically what I have to show you. Ignore that. What I have to show you. It's really, really easy to do server-side rendering. It's really fun to do server-side rendering. I can't really talk too much about the numbers that we can handle on this library. But if you are really curious about this and how to do it, you can always hit me up on how to do it. Give me a second. I have this. Can I push this button? Wait, where's my mouse? God damn it. There it is. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So what you saw today was handling state and routing on Express using two very, very simple tools. All the documentation you're ever going to need are on their website. Express has really, really good documentation, and Express Session has really good documentation. Dynamoose has really good documentation, as well as Mongoose. They're really, really easy to work with. So thank you for having me. It's my first time in Berlin, by the way, and we have fantastic weather right now. So much nicer than the cold and north. But yeah, so you can hit me up at my Twitter. I also run express-vue, which has a thing there. Express-vue is a very, very simple medium between Express and Vue.js, which you saw. You can use something like Nuxt, but I can show you what Nuxt route controller looks like. You want to see what Nuxt's route control Express integration looks like? It looks like this.
Of course.
It's that. Nuxt.js is like your Nuxt stuff goes here. So I had a chat with the Nuxt brothers not that long ago, like a couple of months ago, because we have not necessarily competing things, but so yeah, you could do it that way. But Nuxt is like you've got your server-side rendered thing behind a server, so it's like you got a router and then another router, and then you've got your Express app. Sorry, then you got your Vue.js app, because it's just the client-side application.